things were not much better at all. A lot of people disagreed with the government. They remember their government was set up to where the states had more power than the federal government, but the federal government was starting to exercise more and more, and they wanted the states to have all the power. And the federal government was starting to tax a little bit, so some people were refusing to pay that, and it just wasn't good. It got so bad that Georgia almost left the Confederacy, almost just said, "Okay, we're done. We're fighting back with the Union." And it just got real ugly in the South as well. The big problem was money everywhere. The war cost both sides a lot of money. In the North, they had to have the first income tax. That's a tax on the money that you make. And they issued millions of dollars in bonds. And a bond is like, it's kind of like, I'll give you $40 now, and you hold on to the bond for 5 years, and then you give me $50 back. Or I hold on to the bond and cash it in and get $50 back. So it's kind of giving money now to get more back later, is what that is. And they also printed more money, like physically printed more money. But this led to inflation. And a lot of times people will say, why don't, if we have the ability to print money, why don't we print more? Well, that makes the money we have worth less. And I know this is hard to wrap your brain around, a hard concept to understand, but the more money that's out there, the less it is worth. And let's say, like everyone in a class of 25, let's say we have $100. So we give everyone $4. And then we're going to have an auction for a candy bar. Okay, well, that candy bar may go for $2 at the auction. Someone's going to spend half their money on the candy bar. So it goes for $2. Well, now let's say that I decide, hey, we're gonna just have more money. We're gonna print more money. We're gonna go to $200. So now everyone has 8. Well, someone may spend $4 on that candy bar because they have more money. There's more money out there, so they're gonna spend more. So that makes that candy bar, instead of being worth $2, it's now worth 4. And I know it's hard to understand. I hope you're following me, but the more money that's out there, the less it's worth. So that's what they tried to do, and prices just like skyrocketed and jacked up. And there's stories of places around the world where if they printed more money, and like milk would go from $2 a gallon to $40 a gallon, and stuff like that in countries that have tried this. It just does not work. The only people that were benefiting from the war were the manufacturers, the people that were building supplies that were needed for the war. They were making lots of money, and they were coming out really well. So it was bad in the North. It was even worse in the South. They had to issue a tax in kind, and this meant instead of paying money, you're going to have to turn over part of your crops, and then they're going to give those crops to the troops. So instead of paying $1 for every $10 you make, you're going to give 1/10 of your crops, and then that's going to help feed the soldiers or go to whatever. They also printed more money, like the North had tried to do, but that money basically became worthless. President Jefferson Davis, he decided, hey, we're going to kind of get back at these countries that in Europe that aren't trading with us. So he said, hey, we're not going to send cotton anymore to Britain. And cotton was like the main export that we had. And they're like, we're just not going to do it anymore. And they thought that if they did this, they could get better deals, eventually this would benefit them and help them. Well, Britain's like, okay, we'll just go ahead and get our cotton from India and from Egypt. It's more expensive. It's going to cost us more, but we'll still get it, and we're still not going to help you and still help your slavery. So that plan backfired against Jefferson Davis. And also the blockade. Remember, they were blocking the ports where they couldn't send get goods to come in or send goods out, and they could only produce so much. They didn't have factories, so the blockade really hurt them as well. Basically, the South was broke when it came to economics. They had no money. They were just in good shape, physically or financially at this point. Women. Women during this time, what was their role? Well, they were not allowed to be directly part of the military, but they did play a role. They did a lot of big things, especially in the North, where they took jobs in factories because a lot of the men were off fighting, so they had to keep building these things. So the women stepped in and worked the factories and kept the goods coming. Others worked as things like nurses. They helped raise money, to help buy military supplies. One of the most famous people from the Civil War time was Clara Barton, and she was a nurse from for the Union Army. And after all this happened, she ended up forming the American Red Cross, which obviously we still have today. So the women played a big role in the South. A lot of them would work in the fields, help with the slaves, and do that kind of thing too. So women stayed very busy during this time, and they were trying to raise the family and do the things that they did otherwise. So that is the end of section 17.4, and that's just kind of a lot what life was like during this time. So we're going to go ahead and shut down and stop the recording, and we have one more section to go in our Civil War story.